G'day everyone, how you going? Long time no speak from me. Just been busy with family life and spending time with dad. Time's short. But hey, I want to share this very special couple that are currently pregnant, and she's absolutely beautiful, stunning. And I just trying to get this notion, this word out about clamping the cord after the baby's born straight away. Like generally they do it within like 30 seconds of the baby born. That's it, cut cord. The reason they cut the cord is because they want the stem cells. Now, I'm no doctor. Look up and research your own advice. Take this with a grain of salt. You choose on what to do, but I'm just going to share this information. So I've got a couple of pages here and I'll leave the links in the description. So let's check it out. So, don't clamp umbilical cords straight after birth, experts urge, Science X. Obstetricians and midwives should wait a few minutes before clamping the umbilical cords of newborn infants so that babies are not harmed by the procedure, argues Dr. David Hutchin in an article published in the British Medical Journal today. Hutchin, a retired consultant obstetrician from the Memorial Hospital in Darlington, says it's time for the UK to follow guidance from the World Health Organization and International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetricians and refrain from early cord clamping. Despite the evidence for the benefit of delayed cord clamping, clinics in the UK seem to be reluctant to change their practice, and it's because they want to sell the stem cells for the food industry, the makeup industry, the medical industry. It goes into everything. Heck, 293, look it up. He says at the UK National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence, NICE, is not advising them to do so. One explanation for the apparent resistance of clinicians to follow the evidence is that cord clamping has become the accepted norm, so much so that delaying clamping is generally considered a new or unproven intervention, he writes. Yet he argues that applying a clamp to the cord is clearly an intervention having the greatest effect when it's done quickly after birth, and he fears that babies might be injured by very early clamping. For example, they could experience severe blood loss, hypovolemia, and that's true. It does deprive the baby of oxygen. It's depriving the baby of those stem cells that the baby needs to grow. He adds that two popular pregnancy information books both imply that delayed cord clamping is the norm and explain the advantage of the baby delayed clamping. Hutchin believes that if the need of early cord clamping was removed from NICE guideline, there could be an overnight change in practice. He concludes, clamping the function of umbilical cord at birth is an unproven intervention. Lack of awareness of the current evidence, pragmatism, and conflicting guidelines are all preventing change. To prevent further injury to babies, we were better to rush to change. Citation, don't clamp umbilical cords straight after birth, urges expert, 2010, November 11, retrieved 24th of October 2020 from Medical Express News. This document, copyright subject. Okay, so this will be left in the link. So let's check out the next one. Are we cutting umbilical cords too soon after birth? The most common surgical procedure in the world today, one that every human alive has undergone, is the clamping and cutting of the umbilical cord at birth. The need for clamping and cutting the cord is not in dispute, but how soon after birth should this occur is now being questioned. We've known that immediate umbilical cord clamping and cutting can be harmful. Charles Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, a well-known doctor, summarised the risk back in 1801. Very injurious to the child is the tying of the navel of string too soon. It should be left until all pulsation in the cord ceases. Otherwise, the child is much weaker than it ought to be, a portion of the blood being left in the placenta, which ought to have been in the child. When the first commercial cord clamp device was released in the 1890s, instructions published in the Lancet Medical Journal said it should not be used until the cord stops pulsating, means the blood flow has ceased, which means generally after the placenta has been delivered and completely drained of the blood, it'll have a sort of, like a pale pink sort of colour. However, as intervention in birth climbed in the 1950s and 1960s, concerns about the amount of pain-relieving drugs and anesthetic reaching the baby from the mother's blood increasingly led to immediate clamping and cutting off the cord. More like they wanted the placenta and the stem cells to do studies. That's why. After the 50 years of ignoring early advice, we're seriously examining the implications of what may have been one of humanity's largest uncontrolled experiments, expelling the placenta. After birth, the mother must expel the placenta, which carries oxygen and nutrients to the fetus during pregnancy. This process is known as the third stage of labor. And let me tell you, I was never told or warned about the afterbirth pains. Afterbirth pains are just as painful as your first stage of labor. Just think of it as what goes up must come down, and yes, what expands must contract. It is very painful. I found it more painful than the first stage of labor. Get in the hot shower or a hot bath. It is. In the 1960s, midwives and obstetricians began actively managing the third stage. This involves giving a woman an injection of oxytocin with the birth of the baby, clamping and cutting the cord and pulling the placenta out by using controlled cord traction. That I had with my first son's birth. They literally put hand across hand and pulled it out and left huge chunks of placenta. I ended up getting an infection that smelt worse than a rabid deck of a boat, of a trawler. It was putrid, and I spent extra time in hospital. It was a serious infection that I could have lost my whole uterus, everything, because of these women. They had no doctors on, and they had two midwives that were rushing to deliver another birth because I wasn't booked in the hospital. So, yeah. The alternative, known as psychological third stage, involves doing none of the steps above. No oxytocin is given, the cord is not clamped and cut until pulsation has ceased, and the mother pushes the placenta out herself. And that's the way to be. I gave birth to my two sons with no pain reliever apart from the gas and Panadol, paracetamol. Women have done it for thousands of years. You can do it. Don't lay on a bed. Squatting and letting gravity help. I really injured my back with my first child by laying on a bed, and that's the most damaging to your body. Squatting is the most fastest way, and they never tell you that. Psychological third stage therefore means the baby remains skin to skin with the mother and can't be removed, something that is easier to do once the cord is cut. As the mother and baby come into close contact, the baby starts to seek out the breast. The mother releases her own endogenous oxytocin, conducting her uterus, and separation of the placenta membranes to push them out. And that's true. As soon as you breastfeed, all of this pain goes away. Just remember, pain is temporary, but the birth of your child will forever stay with you. Don't, try and take the easy way out because you don't like pain. It to me was one of the best feelings, knowing that I gave birth a natural way. My first child, I had epidural and felt so robbed, because to have this syntocinon, you have to have an epidural. You cannot have this stuff without an epidural because it's just too painful. And I felt deprived. I didn't bond with my daughter as much as I bond with my sons. And both my children were over 8 pounds. My first son was 8 pound 10. Well, it was 8 pound 9.5 ounces, and my second son was 8 pound 14.5 ounces. So, yeah, it felt so good to do it with no help, only gas and squat, hot water. Yeah. Researchers have knowledge. We still don't know which component of this complex package of active management actually has the most significant impact. Well, the impact is they don't want to spend time waiting around another 40 minutes to an hour for the afterbirth to be delivered. They want to get it done out so they can go back to doing other stuffs, and they can sell the placenta and afterbirth for stem cells. That's what they want. To complete the picture further, research shows post-birth hemorrhaging rates among women who opt for physiological third stage seem to be lower, whereas certain birth environments, home birth and birth centres, are a midwife-led era. This could be because there's much less intervention in these settings that can increase the risk of hemorrhaging. Benefits to the baby. And most maternity units today, normal practice is to clamp and cut but the cord immediately following the birth. This means the baby misses out between 80 to 100 milliliters of blood that they would get naturally if they waited 2 to 3 more minutes, or a bit more than 2 to 3 more minutes. But yeah, And that's a lot of blood for a baby. 80 to 100 is probably more. If the baby is held below the mother's navel during the first few minutes after birth, they can receive an average increase of 32% more blood. And this is what a lot of people are saying, is that children today with this autism and all these Asperger's and all these other problems could be linked back to cutting off the cord and other things that the woman is made to endure when pregnant. The volume decreases with the height of the baby is held at, and the length of time has passed before the cord is clamped. However, most of the blood volume passes into the baby in the first 2 to 3 minutes. And in 2011, a Swedish randomized trial published in the British Medical Journal found that 2 days after birth, babies who had delayed cord clamping had lower rates of anemia, meaning that there aren't enough red blood cells to oxygenate the blood, 1.2% compared to 6.3%. That's a big difference. At 4 months, the infants who had delayed cord clamping had lower rates of iron deficiency, 0.6% versus 5.7%. That's a huge difference, which is important for brain development. Iron deficiency in immediate and young children are considered to be a major public health issue around the world and can lead to lasting cognitive and behavioural delays. See, that's where we get those cognitive divergence. A review of 15 studies showed late cord clamping at least 2 minutes reduced the risk of anemia by nearly half. Bleeding in the baby's brain and severe infections of the bowel also seem less common with delayed clamping and cutting off the umbilical cord. Jaundice, build-up of bilirubin, which gives the skin and eyes a yellowish tinge, which is from the liver, seems to be slightly increased with delayed cord clamping, but it's unlikely to cause long-term damage and doesn't require further treatment. The recently released Cochrane's systematic review therefore concludes a more liberal approach to delaying clamping of the umbilical cord in a healthy term infants appears to be warranted, particularly in the light of growing evidence that delayed cord clamping increases early hemoglobin concentrations and iron stores in infants. Time for change. Current recommendations from the World Health Organization, which is 2006, are to delay cord clamping. And the leading midwifery, Royal College of Midwives, and Obstetric Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists bodies in the UK changed their guidelines in 2012, recommending delaying clamping after cutting the cord for around 3 minutes after birth. But the highly respected NIH for Health and Clinical Excellence in the United Kingdom still supports early clamping and cutting, as do Australian clinical practice guidelines. Yes, they are big in getting the stem cells. They pressure you during labour to sign a piece of paper to give up that cord, the cord blood and the stem cells. The evidence is in. It is time for NICE and Australia's National Health and Medical Research to heed it. It may have taken us more than 50 years to begin to listen to a 200-year-old advice, but let's hope we change this practice more quickly and avoid potential harm to newborn babies. So the story was published courtesy of the conversation under Creative Commons Attributes, no derivative citation. Are we cutting umbilical cords too soon after birth? 2013. That's all the links. So this is for those beautiful people that are currently experiencing their first pregnancy. I pray and hope your child is healthy with no illnesses or issues, and you have a healthy, safe birth, and good luck. Keep you in our prayers and look forward to seeing the photos of your beautiful child. So wherever you are in the world, thanks for watching. Love from Australia. Like, subscribe, share or not, doesn't matter. It's all about you anyway. It's not about YouTube. Much love. Bye now.